Distinguished Howard Lee.
You get there.
I thought.
We're live.
Good evening. I'm calling the regular meeting of this University Place City Council for Monday, November 1st, 2021 to order. This is a hybrid meeting. Myself and our city clerk are in the council chambers, and the rest of our council members are at home. That is why I and Ms. Janita are masked and will continue to remain masked throughout the entire evening. With that, may I please have roll call?
Councilmember Figueroa,
Councilmember Figueroa present.
Councilmember Keel, Councilmember Lee,
Councilmember Lee, present.
Councilmember McCluskey,
You are muted, ma'am.
Councilmember McCluskey, present.
Councilmember Fleming,
Councilmember Fleming here.
Mayor Pro Tem Worthington,
Mayor Pro Tem Worthington here.
Mayor Belisi.
Mayor Belisi is here.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. I understand that Councilmember Keel is currently not on our call, but is expected to arrive later. If he does not show up by the time we get to our public comments, I will ask for a motion to excuse him for the evening. But I believe he is being held up at a meeting that he is currently at, representing the council and the region. So,
Madam Mayor, as a point of order, we just lost you. Oh, you're back. Good.
yeah. Okay, at this time, it's Pledge of Allegiance. I'd like to ask our Mayor Pro Tem Worthington to lead us in that. And those of us that are in the chamber, could we please stand?
Thank you. It'd be my honor. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands. Thank you.
I believe we lost the Mayor Pro Tem halfway through the through the Pledge of Allegiance.
Ah,
So, you want to redo it so we get the full?
I'd be happy to. Yes, thank you. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. At this time, I ask for a motion to approve the agenda as submitted. You are muted.
Mayor Belisi, this is Mayor Pro Tem Worthington, and I move for the approval of the agenda as submitted.
Okay, I have an approval. Do I have a second?
Councilmember Keel, I am here, and I do second.
Great. You were going to be excluded if you hadn't shown up by public comment, so welcome aboard. Okay, at this time, are there any objections to approving the agenda as submitted? Okay. Seeing none, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you. At this point in the agenda, we have a couple of presentations. The first one, I'd like to ask our police chief, Chief Primo, to come forward to introduce our next presenter and the topic. Good evening, Chief.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Tonight we have with us
is Chief Micah Lundborg with the Sheriff's Department. He is the chief of our patrol bureau for the Sheriff's Department, so he is one of the command staff under the sheriff. And tonight he's going to give you just a short presentation to talk about some of the staffing issues that the Sheriff's Department has been facing here recently, and some of the projections moving forward regarding retirements, departures from the department, and our hiring situation. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Chief Lundborg for him to do his presentation.
Well, good morning, Mayor, Council. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we hear you fine.
Oh, very good. Thank you, Chief Primo. As your chief said, my name is Micah Lundborg. I am the Chief of Patrol for the Sheriff's Department. One of the, I guess one of my responsibilities is I oversee the contract chiefs. And so that's why I think I've been invited here tonight to talk to your city and council about some of our challenges. A couple of weeks ago, had the opportunity to speak to your Public Safety Committee, and we went over some of the challenges that we are currently facing. And so I apologize, I can't remember if many of you were in any on that committee, but there will not be a whole lot of new information other than some of our numbers have gotten worse since that time. I guess there is a screen, I guess, that we can just show up there, and I'm not sharing my screen yet. There we go. This is our Pierce County Sheriff's Department staffing data that shows where we have been and where we currently are in terms of our hiring in the blue color and our orange color up to the current date today, with resignations, retirements, separations in orange. As you can see, this year in 2021, we have lost 30 employees this year with, and see, I've got a couple of numbers here on my screen. I apologize, I've got to switch back and forth between some, I believe it's 17 resignations this year and 13 retirements. Got that backwards. I apologize, I just lost my screen. But I guess the important thing to see there is we are not able to keep up with our staffing, with hiring at this point. With only 10 people being hired this year, we are struggling to maintain any kind of a staff that will support the departures that we've had. Our current vacancies for the Sheriff's Department are at 39 as of today. Couple that with, it is 30 additional, apologize here, 30 additional vacancies that are people in the military, on military leave, on injury, on family leave, or just in the training process itself. We just have about 69 people total that we do not have, or 69 positions that we do not have people filling those on the streets to patrol for the Sheriff's Department and our contract. So I apologize, I don't have all these other numbers up in front of me. I don't know what happened to my screen here, but we are struggling, and there is no doubt about it. I think I'm just kind of threw these facts out for you here real quick, but I think I was just going to answer some questions. If you have those and want to start with that, it might be easier, and then I can just respond with what information I have.
Okay. I see Council Member Figueroa, and not Figueroa, Fleming, and Mayor Pro Tem Worthington with their hands up. So,
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Chief, for that quick synopsis. Two questions for you. One is, what's driving the resignations? That seems, during my time over at Pierce County, that number I don't recall ever being that high. And the second part is, what's the get well plan?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think what we're seeing is a product of probably public sentiment over law enforcement over the past 12 months or so. Ever since the murder of George Floyd, there was quite a public outcry in terms of law enforcement, and the public sentiment towards law enforcement became, I don't necessarily want to say hostile, but we saw the defund the police movements across the nation, and the lack of public support. So we entered into this period of time where there's this feeling of not being cared for, not being respected. I did an exit interview with a young deputy this year who left. He had, I think it was about 5 years on, and he just left the profession. He left it completely. And one of the things that he spoke about, and I actually met with Pierce County Prosecutor Mary Robnett about it today, his feelings on just being assaulted. He had been in 2 pretty significant incidents where he had been assaulted, had teeth broken, knocked out, suffered some pretty significant injuries. And one of the comments from the prosecutor's office was, with public sentiment towards law enforcement right now, trying to take this case to the jury, we don't know how sympathetic anyone's going to be to law enforcement. And so that was one of his concerns, that, why do this? Couple that with some of the legislative changes that came into effect in July, and we are seeing officers being prosecuted for things or held to a standard where they're not charging citizens or people where we've been arresting people. They're not allowing us to book those people into jail. They're not charging them. The frustration on officers is just grown to the point where they're saying, I don't know if this is worth it anymore. As the talks continue in the legislative in Olympia about what's going to happen in January and removing qualified immunity from officers, you're going to hold them, personally liable to things. People just do not want to do this job. And you see it from Seattle, Tacoma, Olympia, Lakewood, all the major cities in the area. Kent, Bellevue, Auburn, Federal Way, they just cannot get people to apply. We talk about the pool of candidates is no longer a pool, but rather just a puddle. And it's really a sad deal. I think when Chief Primo and I were applying for the job, we tested with 1,500 different applicants for the same few positions. And now on our last hiring group, they hired 2. And I'm going to guess that probably started with a candidate pool of 30. We just can't get people who want to take the test. And people just do not want to do the job. It's just becoming that much more problematic. And we're competing with, all agencies are competing for the same group of people. Service-oriented professions, I think we're seeing a challenge as well. And not just in law enforcement, but nursing and, doing anything in healthcare. People are burned out. They're tired of taking the brunt of, everyone's frustration. The pandemic has definitely not helped anything. And it's starting to take a toll. So I know that was a long-winded answer to the question, but it just seems to be a nationwide problem, and it is definitely not just our local problem. And but we are definitely feeling it.
So looking ahead, are any thoughts given to how do we turn this around and stem the hemorrhage, stabilize the force?
Yeah, we are trying to figure out what that looks like. We're seeing some agencies, locally that have gone and thrown a lot of money at the problem, and they have increased their pay scale. Some have done some retention programs, trying to throw money at it. And while I do believe it's very difficult not to try to stay competitive in the financial world with these other agencies, it's difficult because of, contracts and comparable when it comes to negotiating for raises. And you've got a county agency, a county organization. We don't have the same tax base, we don't have the same structures as a municipality. So that is one of the challenges that we face. But it's probably more than just money, though. It's looking at what this job is going to look like, and how do we show value to our people. And again, our people are, with the quick answer, is always going to be, it's difficult for us to do the exact same job as the agency next door when we get paid, $8 to $10 less an hour than the neighboring agencies. And so we've got people now who, we've always thought these are career people in our agency that are saying, you know what, if the playing field is going to be leveled, and because of legislative updates, Pierce County used to be the place where they said, well, we can come here and still do law enforcement, meaning we can go work in all different areas. We can, if we have to get in a chase, we get in a chase. The prosecutors, will charge our cases. We can book people into jail, and all that is leveled because all agencies play by the exact same rules now. And it makes it very difficult for people to say, well, if I can get paid more to do the exact same job in the neighboring agency, I'll just go to the neighboring agency. So again, it's hard to say what the answer is going to be. I look at in terms of how do I get somebody to keep them and want to keep them here. I look more in terms of the retention stuff. Of course, these things come down to negotiations, but plans for retirement, things along those lines, I think that's what's going to help hold people to an agency. Just throwing cash up front is a nice gesture, but how do we keep people here? And that's give them something that they can work towards for retirement. And I think that's probably where energy is best should be best spent.
Thank you.
Again, and these are some of my own personal feelings. I'm not speaking for the entire agency on all of this, so I apologize. But that's what I'm seeing, that's what I'm hearing, and that's what I would experience. So,
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Fleming. Mayor Pro Tem Worthington, followed by Councilmember Figueroa.
Very good. Well, Chief Lundberg, thank you for sharing your thoughts and giving us some insight into this. Obviously, it's a large issue that everyone, I think, needs to understand and think of ways that we can help develop the force and make sure folks understand the value that they bring to the community and that it provides as a profession as well. Just a clarifying question. You said, I think, 39 vacancies. Is that just commissioned, or is that commissioned and non-commissioned?
And that would be commissioned.
Okay, so 39 commissioned officers or deputies in this particular case. Yeah. All right. Well, that is a significant segment of your force, obviously, our force, and all. So, in fact, it sounds like that's in excess of 30% in itself. Okay. There are, I'm sure you're doing a variety of recruitments. I happen to know someone involved with the Spokane Sheriff's Department that does background reporting for prospective officers, or rather deputies there, and we've been in touch and all. I think they have their set of challenges as well. They're finding some fertile ground in California for their needs, but in any case, there's some opportunities here and there. But we all have to really understand this and come to think about ways we can help. But I appreciate you taking the time and sharing your thoughts.
Yeah, one thing I do want to point out here is we've all been looking at this, and I always like to use the term thinking outside the box. And Chief Primo, to his credit, he is definitely someone who I've been counting on for that type of a mindset. And he's come up with actually a great idea. I believe he shared it with you, and it talks about overtime pay and how to entice people. And it's something that may not necessarily be possible at this point, but it's that kind of creative thinking that I think we have to be able to get to and adjust to and look at various ideas Your council has been so supportive to your agency, to Chief Primo and the University Place officers. I mean, I used to be the chief in Edgewood, and I always joked that Edgewood was always just like a little UP. I modeled so many things after Chief Blair, and then what I took from Chief Primo, and it's really comforting to know that there is this kind of support that you show your police department and the community. You know, a couple of the things that the Sheriff's Department has been doing as it relates to recruiting, they definitely have upped their game on social media. They've been paying for ads now on Facebook and Instagram. I just talked to our folks in our background unit and recruiting here the other day. They've had a significant increase in, I guess, and I apologize because I'm not a Facebook person or that, but they're following. They can actually track the people that click on things and go through the sites to get there and look at it. I don't exactly know if that means, you know, there's that many more applications, but people are going through and looking, which is promising. The job fairs are continuing. They do stuff with the military on a weekly basis. Lots of emails and phone calls are being handled by our recruiter. They said there was a significant increase of activity with the fair this year and the recruiting that they had done there, which was definitely different than previous years. Excuse me. We're now currently paying for testing, so should someone go to our website and want to test for the agency, there used to be a fee for that. It does not cost the individual anything. The department will pay for that. We have several troopers, Seattle police officers, and King County laterals that have applied. Where they're in the process, I don't have an exact answer. I do know that until those people actually commit to the agency, I don't count on that because some of those people were here for or looking for avoiding the vaccine mandates in their agencies. And so it is always possible that some may have just said it's not worth it to come here, take a lesser pay if they're going to potentially have to have a vaccine mandate here. We do not have that at this point, but who's to say something doesn't change in the distant future. So there are people who may have looked to our agency, but until they actually sign on the dotted line, I have a hard time counting those as laterals yet.
Chief, I have one other follow-up question for you. So you talked about testing and such. So does Pierce County Sheriff's Department run its own testing, or do you use something like public safety testing as a central service?
Yeah, we have the National Testing Network, I believe it is, that we use. So we don't run our own anymore.
Okay, good. I mean, that if an applicant can test once and apply to 6 or 10 agencies, it helps them kind of step up a little bit and focus their attention rather than having to take the test 10 times. So yeah,
correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Councilman Figueroa, followed by Councilmember Keel.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of questions, and that is the count of 39 commissioned officers. Does that include the reserve officers or not?
Nope, just those are the full-time employee commissioned officers.
And how are you, because I know the Sheriff's Department uses reserve officers. How is that going, and how can that be increased?
So it is one of the challenges that we're looking at right now. I believe we currently have 10 reserve officers that are part of the department, but there have been some great concerns with the new legislative updates that came through in July, and it relates to certifications and training and meeting standards. So several agencies in the area have cut their reserve programs. We are not doing that at this point. We are maintaining our program and making sure that we are just meeting the certification requirements. But it is a challenge. We're looking to see how it works before we open it up to anybody else. We had a little bit of a shakeup in this past year in terms of who was supervising, and so we've had some turnover, and we are going to just with what we have, make sure we meet all the standards that we're required to through the state. And then if it's working okay, we'll look at opening it up to additional people that have expressed interest. But at this point, we are just shutting the door on any new ones coming in.
Okay, and then one more question, and that is, I know that you said something about somebody in your department is dealing with the military. I don't know what that means. I'd like to know more because of the severe shortage, and we have a huge military presence here of a lot of people in security, in peace, or otherwise that are constantly leaving the military right from here, from JBLM. And along that same note is with a huge departure of security law enforcement personnel from Afghanistan that include the private contractors. What is this department doing to seek more than just maybe putting an ad on the Facebook or sending out on a poster, most wanted, you know, when did you come and talk to us, is being more active? I mean, this is a severe situation that requires a severe recruitment. So anything, can you expand on that a little bit more?
Well, unfortunately, I never did the job of the recruiter, so I'm not 100% familiar with all that he's doing. When I spoke with him, he did mention, and I got it in my notes here, he's at JBLM Weekly. So he is out on foot and, you know, talking to people. But yeah, you're right. If there are other things that we're missing, or there's something that others believe that we should be doing, please let us know. If there's connections that you may have, or know someone that would have a better connection to somebody or a unit or something like that, I think that would be wonderful for us to have and utilize. So
really should seek out the military contractors that supplied security. They didn't go anywhere into another conflict area of conflict there. So I'm wondering where they all went. I mean, you can't stuff them just in one place. So I think that would be a good place to try to recruit. So anyway, thank you.
okay, thank you,
Mayor.
sir.
Okay, Councilmember Keel?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to follow up with what Councilman Figueroa, he said a lot of what I was thinking too, Chief, and thank you for your presentation. And my thought is really centers around that of just taking a more, and I'll use the word aggressive approach to recruiting, as opposed to, you know, kind of this passive thing. I mean, when I think about Pierce County, I don't see the pushback in our county as much as you see in King County about defund the police. I mean, I can't think of any city in Pierce County that even said that.
Right.
You know, so why officers are leaving because of defund the police? That's not happening here. You know, I do understand the people, you know, being more aggressive toward police. But I mean, they got to know that it's a dangerous job just to begin with, right? So I mean, you know, so it's those kinds of things, you know, that talk back to your force about, you know, what they might be seeing in social media or in the news. You know, that might be happening in King County and other parts of the country. It's not happening here to that level. And so just something that you can do about that kind of talk and that kind of like, oh, wait a minute, hold up. Are you looking at what's happening here, or are you looking at what's happening, you know, other places? You know, so and just that whole thing like that, and just being aggressive on the recruiting. So I'm really encouraged to hear the things that you said that you're doing, and just continue a lot of that before as we move forward. So. Yeah.
I appreciate your comments, Councilmember Keel. I believe you're 100% correct. The community that we get to serve throughout all of Pierce County are incredibly supportive, and it's often lost upon us because we do take the the big picture from the nation, or Seattle. When someone's mad at law enforcement, it's not necessarily directed at the Pierce County Sheriff's Department. It's not directed at the University Place Police Department. It's not directed at us. It is at the uniform that we wear, and it's just sometimes it's very difficult to separate oneself from that comment because it's not directed at us. It's directed at our profession. But trying to continue, we try to state that message on a regular basis. But after a while, it becomes tough. It's hard to hear someone talk negatively about you or your family every single day. And so I think that's why we're starting to see people leaving. And that's the hard part. If you look at that graph that showed people leaving, I mean, we've averaged, probably around the 18 to 25 over the course of several years that just leave regularly. It's just right now we're not hiring people to backfill the big loss that we have. When Chief Primo and I were hired, I think it was back in 1994, we were a hire group of 54. They had a special levy back then. There was another one back in 88 where they hired some 50-some people. Those people are all retiring. Our group is retiring, which is just the natural progression of things. But the difficult stuff now is having people at the 2-year, 10-year point leaving early and then not having anyone to backfill those ones. We've kind of lost this little generation there. But then the other scary part is that people are just leaving the profession completely. So it's not like they're leaving Pierce County to go to Auburn. They're leaving Pierce County and they're moving to Idaho and they're becoming a banker. And that's hurting professionals nationwide.
Yeah. I just 2 other comments and I'll be done, Mayor. I appreciate your sentiment. I totally get that. And I'm musing now of around the profession as a whole, right? I mean, up until this point, the profession attracted a certain type of person, right? With a certain mindset and certain drive and all those things. And so I'm just musing now with things are, does the job require different makeup of person, right? And wondering if the profession could go about and do some type of a study. I mean, I almost became a police officer years ago, 30 years ago, and I have a lot of police officers in my family across the country, and the background tests and psychological tests and things that we have to go through to get there. I'm wondering if there's a different makeup of the type of person today that is needed and that needs to be attracted into this type of position. So that's one thing that I'm just kind of musing about. The other thing I'd like to say is that, and I think you get it, you said it here, is that this council to the person supports our local police department. And I think we support police in general across the board. And and I'll speak for myself now. I'm very interested in figuring out ways to get over this hump and get through so that we can continue to protect the citizens of University Place and the citizens of Washington. So I think we're all here, all open to that conversation.
Well, Councilmember Keel, I will say we are still hiring. You can still apply if you're still interested. And it kind of leads me, I say it jokingly with an air of sincerity. Some of the good hires that we've made as of late have been people second careers. So people who have they've been an electrician, they've been in sales or working service industry, and now they're coming back and they thought this is something I thought about when I was younger, never did anything about, and now they're doing it. And I think you hit the nail on the head with this. We probably are looking for someone who looks at things a little differently. The days of those old knuckle dragger cops, they hired you because you were 6'3" and you could throw someone around. We don't do that. This truly is a profession now where you have to think, you have to articulate, you have to be able to work with your community, you have to be a part of your community, you have to represent your community. And that's what we are looking for, and that's what we're trying to attract, and who we're trying to attract into the profession. We've got some amazing people on this department, and if we can just clone them, boy, we can just keep doing some great things. It's just now it's trying to find those people in a smaller pool, and so how do we attract them back? And I think your support, you're the one city who has actually written a letter that says to these people who are coming into our lateral program or into our new hire program saying, hey, welcome to this agency, Pierce County Sheriff's Department. We're a city and university place that contracts our police services with you, and we support you and this agency. It's a great place. You're the only ones to have written that letter so far, and so it shows me the kind of support that this city has, and I couldn't be more appreciative. And so we're just trying. We just gotta get through this hump, and I'm hoping some legislative changes happen in January, and people can take a breath again and feel like the state does support and they're not trying to tie our hands so much. But fingers crossed.
Well, is this Howard Lee's third career choice?
Yeah. No. I want to, Chief Lundberg.
I was gonna ask that question. Kent gave me an idea. Do you need any really old people?
Time out. We're
I'll
going
take
off
everybody
the
at
rails
this point.
A little here, people. Okay. Well, Chief Lundberg and Chief Primo, I would appreciate it if you could stay. Chief Lundberg, you led us into our next presentation item. We do have a proclamation of support for our police department, so I would appreciate you sharing that with not only UP police officers, but the rest of the sheriff's deputies. So with that, I will read the proclamation. City of University Place proclamation. Whereas the City of University Place has contracted with the Pierce County Sheriff's Department for police services since its incorporation 25 years ago, and whereas the city's partnership with the Pierce County Sheriff's Department has enabled the city to build upon its reputation as a safe and livable community thanks to the Pierce County Sheriff's Department outstanding law enforcement personnel, and whereas the men and women of law enforcement do incredibly important and complex work, and whereas communities locally and nationally have encountered difficulties in recruiting and retaining law enforcement officers, and whereas we recognize the city's ability to maintain a successful University Place police department directly relates to Pierce County Sheriff's Department ability to attract the very best and brightest candidates and to retain dedicated, highly trained career law enforcement officers. And whereas we would like to express our support for community and commitment to the men and women of the Pierce County Sheriff's Department who provide professional law enforcement services to the residents of the City of University Place. Now, therefore, the City Council of the City of University Place expresses gratitude and support to the men and women of the University Place Police Department and the Pierce County Sheriff's Department, and we support their ongoing efforts to make our community safer. Furthermore, the City Council of the City of University Place will work collaboratively with the Pierce County Sheriff's Department to identify financial and legislative solutions to address the challenges of recruitment and retention of the very best law enforcement officers, proclaimed by the City Council of the City of University Place on November 1st, 2021. So please do let not only your officers but management know that we will work however we can to ensure that we can continue to recruit and even enhance our recruitment opportunities. So thank you both for being here this evening. Mr. Councilmember Keel, you have a final word?
I do, Mayor. Thank you for that, and I'm very excited about the proclamation that was read, and I am one person that stands behind it 100%, every single word. as we go forward, and Chief, you talked about this legislative session coming up, where there's going to be a lot more talk about the laws, and my role with Association Washington Cities, I am a part of those discussions with the legislators that are backing a lot of that legislation. I was in a lot of the discussions last year, and I will continue to do that. And I just wanted to just make myself available and really ask, that you carve out some time to talk about those things and some of your ideas, because my personal goal is to make things better. I mean, what got passed was not what we wanted to get passed in the very beginning. And as Councilmember Fleming knows firsthand, what you start with, and then when it goes into that little room, and they start making sausage, what comes out is not exactly what you thought that you wanted. And that certainly has happened this time around. And so my goal is to make it better. And I would just really invite your input and your words around how we can do that.
I truly appreciate that. I think that is absolutely wonderful. And thank you. Thank you for, just letting us bounce something off you. And thank you very much for the proclamation. Again,
All right.
You're a great city, and you're doing wonderful things, and very appreciative of all of you and what you're doing for us.
Well, thank you both for coming this evening and joining us for this. So, and thank you for the information you've shared with the community so that they understand the issues facing not only the city of University Place, but Pierce County as a whole when it comes to law enforcement. So thank you. All right, we're on to our next presentation. It's an exciting one. Can I get Linda Sees and Amanda Kleebler forward, please? Before I let them speak, I want to just let you know that in September, our UPTV team took home numerous awards from the National Association of Telecommunication Officers and Advisors, otherwise known as NATOA, the Government Programming Awards, including one award of excellence, essentially first place, 3 awards of distinction, and 5 awards of honor. The We Are UP video, which celebrated the city's spirit, and I'm sure each one of you has viewed multiple times, promoted community solidarity amid the COVID pandemic, took first place in the best use of video on social media category, as well as an award of honor in the PSA COVID category. The award trophies have just arrived, and we wanted to take this opportunity to share the first place trophy and video with our community, and plus say congratulations to the staff who worked on these award-winning videos. Our communication staff, Linda Sees and Amanda Keebler, are the team behind the University Place television, which you can watch 24/7 at home on channels 12 and 21, as well as on YouTube. Our social media presence on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and electronic newsletters. So I'm here to congratulate the both of you on your award, and I know that we also have PCTV to thank too, as they help to produce some of those videos for us. So I just want to say thank you to our team. Linda, you're not on screen. We want to just say congratulations.
Am I not on screen?
No?
No, we can see you.
Oh, now we can.
Oh,
I can see you.
maybe it's okay that I'm not on screen. I'm not used to being on screen. I'm usually behind the screen, so that's okay. So some people can see me, and maybe that's enough. Oh, actually, I am on your screen. It's all good. Thank you, Mayor. We really appreciate you having the award there and us getting to see it from home. That's wonderful. And we appreciate the kudos. I did want to say, and you kind of touched on it, UPTV's success is not ours alone. I wanted to throw a shout out to Dave Kelman, who is our editor videographer. You all know him really well. He's been working on UPTV longer than I have. He was there at the very beginning. Some of you have known him longer than I have as well. He does all of our editor videographer work, and he's the person who worked on these behind the scenes for sure. So good job, Dave. Amanda was the producer on this first place entry, however, and she's going to talk a little bit about what this was a kind of a campaign, and she's going to talk a little bit more about that because we have an audience and we like an audience, so we're going to take advantage of that. But thank you. Go ahead, Amanda.
Thank you, Linda, and thank you, Mayor and City Council. So just a little bit about the video. So the intent behind the We Are UP video was to help connect us and the community during the COVID-19 pandemic, highlighting both the resiliency and creativity here in UP. We worked alongside two of our partner agencies, West Pierce Fire and Rescue and the Pierce County Library System. We each created and shared our own videos over the course of a week across all of our platforms, all using the hashtag WeAreUP. In return, we asked all of our community members, businesses, residents, and more to share with us the new and innovative ways they stayed connected during a time when we were all socially distanced, using the hashtag WeAreUP to connect all of our stories. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get the video rolling. All right. And here we go.
Hi, I'm Caroline Belisi, Mayor of University Place. Time and time again, in good times and challenging times.
You're welcome.
The spirit of University Place, its people, its businesses, and its traditions shine bright. Thanks to creative thinking and can-do determination, we've discovered innovative ways to celebrate old traditions. Our community is incredibly resilient. It's responsive. It is remarkable. Check out and follow hashtag WeAreUP to see what's happening right here in our community, then post and share your stories using the hashtag. Collectively, our experiences help shape University Place. Our schools, your library, first responders, the businesses, city partners, and most importantly, you, all stitched together create the rich, diverse tapestry that is our place.
And we should also mention kudos to the mayor for her fabulous narration. She did a wonderful job.
Good job, Mayor.
Well, it's all to Dave. He makes everybody look really good. So, and
Certainly
I'm
does.
so proud of you guys for earning top awards. I understand the competition is very stiff. So congratulations.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's a national organization, so we're very excited. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
And I highly encourage our community, if they haven't already and are on Facebook, to like the City of UP Facebook page, because they do send out some fantastic videos, reminders of upcoming events, and even reminders of meetings and so forth. So it's a good way to connect and engage with your community. So thank you again, you two.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
All right, at this time, we are on to our consent agenda. I'd like to call for a motion to approve or amend the consent agenda as provided.
Mayor Belisi, this is Mayor Pro Tem Worthington, and I move for the approval of the consent agenda.
Okay, great. We have a first. Do I have a second?
Yes, Councilmember Keel, I second.
Okay. Are there any objections to approving as presented? Okay, hearing none, I close the consent agenda, and I have been informed that I forgot the public comment section. So we will move back to the public comment section. I was so excited over the video, I just did that. We are now at the public comment section. There is nobody here in our chamber at this time, but if you are on the phone or watching this on YouTube and would like to provide public comment, here is your time. The information is on the screen. I will give you a few minutes in which to dial the phone, and we will take your comment at this time. I am not getting any indication that anybody is making an effort to provide public comment. Okay, at this time, we will close the public comment section as it appears that nobody is trying to call in. So we are now on to our public hearing, the 1% property tax levy. May I ask our finance director Director Leslie Blaisdell to please come on screen.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'm Leslie Blaisdell, Finance Director. Per the state statute, the city is authorized to increase property tax annually up to the lesser of the implicit price deflator, IPD, or 1%. Based on the information provided by the assessor, the city is limited this year for 2022 to the 1% levy increase. The property tax levy in the 21-22 adopted budget does include the increase in our projected numbers. To implement the increase for 2022, it is necessary to adopt an ordinance imposing an increase in the regular property tax levy. The statutory limit results in an increase in the levy of $41,457.87, which is a percentage increase of 0.9122%. Please keep in mind that these are estimates based on the data we currently have. We'll get our final assessed valuations in December, but historically there's been very little change from the preliminary certification numbers. We did receive 7 emails from residents opposed to the increase, and those emails were forwarded to City Council by the City Clerk. There's a common misunderstanding about property taxes. Many people assume that if there's a property value increase, that there is a proportionate increase in their taxes. In Washington State, we use a budget-based system, and so state law limits the annual increase to 1% more than the city collected in the prior year, regardless of inflation or increased property values. For example, if a UP home is valued at $500,000 in 2021 and the homeowner's property value increased at the same rate as an average UP home, the homeowner would pay the city approximately $5 more, or 1%, in the property taxes in 2022. All city property taxes revenues are dedicated to public safety and not general operation expenses. The 1% increase, as I mentioned earlier, will generate an additional $41,548 in tax to the city. In contrast, our police contract with Pierce County increases 3% annually, which for 2022 would be $117,088. The cumulative impact of not implementing the statutorily allowed increase in 2022 over our 10-year forecast period is approximately $480,000. Before concluding my report, I'd like to share the dollar bill that we use often in our literature. You can see that in 2021, the city received 7 cents of every dollar paid in property tax. The remaining 93 cents is distributed between Washington State, Pierce County, Port of Tacoma, flood control, emergency medical services, school districts, libraries, sound transit, and fire districts. And lastly, I'd like to share our historical city tax rates since incorporation. We'll get that up on the screen. Based on the figures we have at this time, whoops, that's not it.
That's not it. It's pretty, but it wasn't it.
Yeah.
Still not it.
Well, you could say based on the figures you have, we're floating above the water.
Yeah. That's right. So you can see in 2021, our rate per thousand of assessed value was 88 cents, and that has been steadily decreasing since 2013. Based on the data we have right now, our estimate for a levy rate for 2022 would be 78 cents per 1,000 assessed value. Again, that will change slightly once we get our final assessed valuation numbers. So that concludes my report.
Okay, this is a public hearing, and therefore Ms. Blaisdell did refer to the 7 emails that we had received as part of public comment. I am going to open it up for public comment. If there is anybody on YouTube that is watching this live, they have an opportunity at this time to call in using the same information from our public comment section. You can call in remotely with 1-509-342-7253 and use conference ID 110848-521#. So I will provide a minute or two to see if anybody is in the public that wants to comment by calling in before I close the public comment section. I am getting notification that no one is making an effort to call into our live meeting this evening, so I will close the public comment section at this time. May I have a motion for discussion, please?
Mayor Bellisi, this is Mayor Pro Tem Worthington, and I move for the approval of an ordinance with the City of University Place, Washington, relating to the ad valorem property taxes, establishing the amounts to be raised in 2022 by taxation of excess value of properties in the city, and setting the levy rate for the year 2022.
Okay, I have a first. Do I have a second?
Councilmember Keel, I second.
Okay, I have a first and a second. We are now open for council comments. I will ask in order, Councilmember Figueroa, did you have any comments or questions at this time?
Councilmember Figueroa does not have any comments. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Keel.
Great, thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Keel, Leslie, thank you for the presentation. I mean, it was well done, as it always is well done. So I appreciate that. The one point that you typically make that wasn't made, that I didn't hear made tonight, was that a lot of times, and yeah, I think you rightly stated that sometimes people don't understand exactly what we're doing and they compare it to other kind of taxes. There's a number that we typically talk about, that if there was an average house of 100,000, I can't remember what number, that this increase would increase the tax by some dollar figure. Do you have that number? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I used an example in the presentation that if you had a home valued at $500,000, it would be an increase of approximately $5. This will fluctuate just a little bit if someone's assessed values increased by a greater percentage, but typically it's, you know, $5-6 for total for the year for a household.
And thank you for that. And I just want to just underscore that. I mean, $500,000 house, we're talking about $5 more for the whole year to go to police, right? And I, you know, and I'm not a big tax guy. I mean, I'm not a tax guy, more tax guy at all. But when I look at the situation, I mean, it just makes a lot of sense, right? I mean, and no one can refute that government agencies, that's how they operate, is through taxation. And so that's a point that I want to make sure that is real clear and underscore to the public. That's $5 a year more for police. Thank you for that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Lee, any comments or questions?
Councilmember Lee, I have no comments or questions. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember McCluskey.
Councilmember McCluskey, I have no questions, but I'll be in support of this, especially when it targets our public safety. And I like how we reframe the dollar to put in police, so that hopefully the citizens will know that every penny of all these increases, how minimal they are in retrospect to our surrounding cities and county and school districts get to run our whole entire city, and that minimal goes to police services. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Fleming.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My only comment is, Leslie, thank you for your presentation, and truly thank you for making it really clear for people to understand. You know, as Councilmember Keel pointed out, people hear the word tax and they start to shake. This is a little different than what most people are used to. I think the way you have really quantified it and clarified it, I think helps people understand why this particular one is important to the community. So thank you, and I have no other comments.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Worthington.
Mayor Bellisi, this is Mayor Pro Tem Worthington, and just briefly, Leslie, indeed, you did a fine job explaining the situation and the amount of money that's involved and why, how that works. It can be complex, and the fact that it does go to police, we've heard earlier tonight some of the necessities we have there and some of the challenges in front of them as individuals, and it is a difficult time. Regardless, though, a $5 cost approximately for the average home here as an annual cost seems very much in scale, and we know that our police services raise at about 3% per year, and this provides just 1%. So that still leaves a 2% gap that needs to come from somewhere. And this is a key piece of how we get at least a third of that problem taken care of. I also did some quick math here, and the cost per citizen is about $1.29 per year per individual. If you were to look at that increase divided by our census population numbers, look like it's going to be about 35,000 people, and so it's $1.29 if you choose to look at it that way annually in the increase in cost. All right, well, thank you.
Well,
I'll be voting for
Mayor
this.
Pro Tem Worthington. Ms. Blaisdell, I want to say thank you. That was a very good clarifying report. I know I have spoken to our city manager, and a response will be going out to those 7 individuals that send us emails tomorrow that will provide the same information that we were provided this evening, so that they are aware of why we made the decision we made and be able to find the information on our website to help them understand the situation. So thank you very much, everybody. At this time, are we done with our comments? Do we want anything else to say? No. Okay, Ms. Janita, may we please have roll call for the vote?
Councilmember Figueroa.
Councilmember Figueroa, yay.
Councilmember Keel.
Councilmember Keel, aye.
Councilmember Lee.
Councilmember Lee, aye.
Councilmember McCluskey.
Councilmember McCluskey, aye.
Councilmember Fleming.
Councilmember Fleming, aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Worthington.
Mayor Pro Tem Worthington, aye.
Mayor Belisi.
Mayor Belisi, aye.
Vote result 7-0, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. All right, we are going on to our next council consideration item. It's the 2022 legislative priorities. Is Eric Faison on board, or are we going to be talking? It looks like we're talking to our attorney, Matt Kaiser.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Matt Kaiser. I am not Eric Faison, but I am Matt Kaiser, your city attorney. I'm pinch hitting for Mr. Faison tonight. Before you tonight for action is your proposed 2022 legislative agenda, which was the focus of your study session at your previous meeting. Just to set the table for council a little bit, the legislature is set to convene in early January for what we call a short session, the 60-day session, where it's just primarily policy focused. In advance of that session, the city, as it usually does, examines what policy and other financial asks that it would like to have of the legislature. This year, you have a proposed legislative agenda, which is drawn heavily from the priorities put together by the Association of Washington Cities, and they've emphasized 3 main priorities of passing a transportation package, ensuring basic infrastructure funding, and protect transportation benefit district funding authority. In addition, council has identified through the process together with staff a number of financial asks to set the table for other capital projects in the upcoming and even following sessions. Those include monies for the Chambers Creek pedestrian bridge. That would be the money for bridge number 2, not bridge number 1 that was that's in the process of being installed. A study for a subsequent bridge on Day Island, state funds towards the construction of the Homestead Park Pavilion, additional money for sewer infrastructure, money for a community center study, funds for nuisance abatement, and then state funds for Chambers Creek Road Phase 2. I think so. We go through this process every year. This is the time and place for council to decide and identify which priorities it would like to emphasize, which ones it would not. From here, we obviously take, once council goes through the process, we share the legislative agenda with our legislative delegation and act on it accordingly. This also, and I'll close with this, this also is not necessarily the final word on legislative priorities. Throughout the course of session, there will be bills, other legislation that will pop up. Has those pieces of legislation of interest to the city materialist, we'll obviously identify those and bring those to the council as appropriate. With that, I will turn the matter back to council.
Okay, there is an opportunity for public comment, so I will open that up before we have our discussion and Q&A. And again, if there's anybody watching remotely that would like to comment, this is your opportunity. The information will be put on the screen here momentarily, but in the meantime, if you have a phone ready and you want to call, it's 1-509-342-7253, conference ID 110848-521#. There does not appear to be anybody at this time that's attempting to access via phone. So I will close the public comment section and ask for a motion for consideration.
Mayor Bellisi, this is Mayor Pro Tem Worthington, and I move for the approval of a resolution setting the 2022 legislative priorities for the city of University Place.
Okay, I have a first. Do I have a second?
Councilmember Keel, I second.
Okay, I have a first and a second. We're open for discussion. And since this isn't a public hearing, I will allow a hand raise. So whoever's first and has some questions or comments, raise your hands. Oh, come on. Councilmember Figueroa, you always have a question. Okay, you don't. I see Councilmember Keel.
How's that?
Yeah, Councilmember Keel, you raised your hands.
I did. Thank you, Mayor. I was thinking, man, you should have used that round robin thing again. That would have forced us all the time. So. Yeah. In talking with just staff today and just trying to figure out how this around legislative session, it appears that we've got a lot of asks, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think it's a great thing. Because as council members, if we got things we want to put on the table, I think we've done that, and I think that's fantastic. The thing that I'm thinking about though is it's a short session, one, and I do know, and I'm sure you've heard as well, that typically with short sessions, and then more so with this pandemic and all the stuff that's going on, they go in with already kind of like, here's what we're going to deal with. And we don't have time to deal with anything else. And it's more acute now this year. And so I'm wondering if, how much opportunity we have to get anything if we're not laser focused on the one or two things. And so I'm just trying to prime the conversation to see if we can get to some agreement tonight that says, yeah, we have these, whatever, 5, 6, 7 things, but here are the 2 priority things that we for sure want to get focused on. So I just throw that out as a possibility. I have some suggestions if that's where we want to go, but I'm interested to see if my colleagues are thinking the same thing I'm thinking. Okay. Thanks, Mayor.
All right, Councilmember Figueroa, followed by Mayor Pro Tem Worthington.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm kind of thinking the same thing, Keel, but Kent, but I think that we need to keep them all in there. We could maybe emphasize a couple that we are really doing that, but I think that having, a smorgasbord of things that are important to our city and our community, let them play out with our legislators and see which ones they touch the heart and emotions and say, I want to champion this one. I want to champion that one, because we know in a short session, they're not really going to divvy out much funds, if any at all, but certainly it's setting the stage for the following session And this gives us the opportunity, getting back to this priority thing that we're trying to know, what do we focus on, is letting this play out, really have an ear, all of us and staff, including, have an ear what the legislators are saying about our legislative agenda, and see if any priorities come out where they're willing to champion that and really take that to the committees and all that. So next year we really elaborate even more and just focus on that 2 or 3 or whatever that comes out of. Hopefully we get some feedback out of our legislators out of this. I think for me, I feel like the strategy would be to get them to communicate to us how do they feel about any of these, to see if any of them really just stand out so much as say, hey, come back next year, give me more information, and we'll go bat for you. Thanks.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Worthington, followed by Councilmember Fleming.
Thank you, Mayor Bellisi. So Mayor Pro Tem Worthington here. A couple of quick thoughts. I do think it could be helpful for us either to prioritize maybe the top 3 and let the rest come along, but not necessarily in order. But I think we do need to focus to some extent. It's helpful to have some other things on our list at times, depending upon the opportunities as they come forward. And additionally, as we discovered this last year, we can be effective on the federal side as well. And having these items available, thinking of them not just as state legislative priorities, but federal priorities as well. Some of these may be better suited for federal dollars. The bridge study, for example, with the Day Island Bridge, that's a long, involved process, and it might be federal dollars that start that ball rolling for us. So I think we want to, in my mind, I'd suggest we think about this as state and federal. On the state side, we might want to prioritize 3 or so, and then see if we want the rest on the list. And then finally, I don't want to suggest this as a specific legislative outcome, but I do think it would behoove us to ask staff and for us all to, those that are able to be engaged, to track the legislative proposals and changes on social justice reform. We just earlier tonight heard some of the concerns on the law enforcement side of that. We're familiar with the issue in a number of other venues as well. I think while I'm not suggesting we have proposals specific to that, I do think tracking that is in our interest. So thank you.
Thank you. Council Member McCluskey, followed by Council Member Lee.
Okay, I thought Councilmember Fleming was coming up, but I will proceed.
I'll follow you. How's that?
Right, sounds good. I wasn't quite expecting to come up so soon, but I am ready. I like the list. I like to prioritize the list because maybe sometimes they have some quick funds to implement quickly in a shorter session, and if they see some lower dollar figures that they can plug in that's not over $1 million or $3 million, that might be a little more complex, they'll be more apt to do it because they all have some of funds that they're at the end of a session that they're asking, where do you want it? What do you want? And so if it's something that is lower numbers and they could plug it in, I think that would be good to have that on the list, but also to prioritize our priorities as to what we need, essentially first. And I also am tracking with Mayor Pro Tem Worthington as to tracking the outcomes of some of the social justice legislation, to follow that up. But I'm not really sure if that's a legislative proposal or that's just for our staff to follow. So I need a little more clarification on that. If you want that specifically in the legislative priorities or not, or just something for us to keep track of, along with our city staff. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I am going to put Councilmember Fleming before you, Councilmember Lee, since he had his hand up. And so Councilmember Fleming.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't know where my hand went to, but I think it was still up there. But anyhow, you know, having played in the arena down in Olympia, the points that several council members have made tonight is absolutely accurate. I think it behooves us as a city to say, here are our priorities. I think it makes sense to prioritize what's most important to least important. And then lastly, to keep it on the radar screen, whether it's funded this year or not. If it's on the radar, then as funds become available, whether it's in this session or the next session, we're in the pot. If we were to simply pick one or two off the list tonight and drop the rest of those, then if there were additional funds available, we would lose out on that opportunity. And then into next year, then you're having to revisit this whole thing again and get it back on the radar screen for the people down in Olympia. You know, to Mayor Pro Tem Worthington's point, funding comes from different places, and certainly federal funds are a biggie, state funds, but we should never discount the county funds also. There is a committee that sits at the county. I used to sit on that committee where they receive state and federal funding for highway and road and bridge improvements, and they meet, I think it's monthly or quarterly, and they divvy up those funds as they become available. So we should, you know, and I'm sure our staff is well aware of that. So to some of these other projects we're looking at, we should keep that on our focal point also. So we should not only let our state legislators and our federal legislators know, but we should let our county legislators know these are our priorities too. So as they have opportunities, they can help support these initiatives. But do like the idea. I like what's on the list, but I do like the idea that if we can come to some consensus, we should set a priority and then just move this whole thing forward.
Okay. Councilmember Lee, finally your turn.
Councilmember Lee, I concur with the previous comments concerning keep the entire list, but prioritize it so that they can be picked at and choose according to how much money is left in the pot. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I think I agree with Councilmember Fleming. Having this list, as far as I read it, it's legislative priorities. We're not specifying if it's state or federal. And I think our state legislators should also know what we're looking to the feds for and vice versa, so we can potentially strengthen our case in as far as our legislative priorities go. As far as prioritizing, I would say that how are you going to prioritize when you don't know what the funds are that are available for our legislators at the state level to divvy out? If we have the conversation and we understand that they have only X number of dollars, we have our list here, we can bring that project forward and say, oh, this would be the ideal funding that would be capable of meeting the criteria for what you are looking for. I think as long as staff and us on council are aware of what our priorities are, as we have conversations, those priorities would then rise to the top. I mean, there were things that we got funding for that we had not legislatively prioritized, but we on the council and staff had discussions about needing funding, and an avenue appeared, and we were able to garner some grant funding as a result of that. So I'm not so sure I'm a fan of providing a priority list at this time. Let's set the groundwork. These are things and projects that may very well take a year or two to fester into anything viable, but at least we have a running list of what we are looking for in the future, and can have that ongoing conversation with our legislators at all levels, county, state, and federal level. Okay, I see Mayor Pro Tem Worthington followed by Councilmember Fleming.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate that. So I think, as was pointed out by Councilmember Fleming and others, the idea of having the list so we're aware of them, we see what's on the list, it keeps that in our conscious and our staff's work as well. I think that makes some sense. If I were to set priorities in my own mind, I would probably list the top three as my three top priorities. Those are some near-term projects for us. While we've had been doing some important work on sewer, and we continue to need to do that, we have been able to get some focused resources on that coming up this next year. And we'll come back to that, I think, in the near future as well, and maybe the opportunities there. We have it on the list. We can certainly go to that. But in our recreation plan, despite some other news that may be out there, trails are the #1 most popular item in the recreation programming, and the Chambers Creek Trail is well on its way, and is one of the reasons why I talk about that as being a priority for us. Is that my recollection is that is the item. Trails were the thing that had the most attention from the public in the ratings. So just quickly, those would be a place to start if you wish.
Okay, Councilmember Fleming, followed by Councilmember Keel.
Madam Mayor, to your point, I know money talks, and I agree we could either leave this as is, or we could prioritize. The recommendation for prioritizing, it just helps guide legislators in terms of when they're looking for money, but I think we could also message that by saying, hey, you may not have the 1.2 million for a bridge, but starting, working on nuisance abatement for 250, if that money becomes available, go for it. It's not an all or none deal. This is how we see it in our community, but all these are important to us, and whatever is available, we're certainly happy to receive and work on those particular items. So I think it would be a win-win no matter how we look at it in terms of how we proceed.
Okay, Councilmember Keel, followed by Councilmember Figueroa.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So, yeah, that's my thought. And from the very beginning, I think we keep the whole list, and they all make our cut as far as a priority, as far as our legislative priorities. But if we were to take a priority amongst those, I like the idea of saying, hey, these are the things that we deem are important to us. They all are important, but if you have money, can we look at these things first? But if you got money in other areas, then we'll take that too as well. And staff has done a great job of articulating that with the legislators. And so I think they are just looking for some general kind of direction from us. And I think we're having that conversation now that's going to help them. My last point is, I think with different levels of legislators, they have different focuses. And so there may be some, we may highlight, I'll use that word as opposed to priority. We may highlight certain things on our legislative priority list with different groups. So like at the, maybe the state level, it's the top three that Mayor Pro Tem was talking about. And then maybe at the federal level, we're talking about the Bay Island Bridge. I'm making stuff up now, and then at the county level, it's something that has to do with roads because we know that. But we just highlight those with the different levels, but they all stay on our legislative priority list. And then we stay open to the work that staff does at every level to be able to fund and work with getting funds for any of them that might pop.
Makes sense.
Councilmember Figueroa.
Thank you, Mayor. It's interesting. I wouldn't mind hearing from staff like Eric and others that have to deal with the legislators on our behalf to see how they would like to see us maybe look at things. But I can go either way. The whole list is a priority list. I like Councilmember Keel's take on that is how we highlight that. And I think if I saw that, it was highlighting as we have conversations, discussions with certain legislators, or whether it be the county, state, or feds. But I think that maybe, it's just an idea, this is the priorities for our community, and then maybe have an asterisk, and or something that highlights it, and that asterisk would be a footnote saying these are for better words, long-term goals, because they're large numbers. Some are much larger numbers, like we all know. When you get into the millions, we know that it could be 2 or 3 sessions before they can help us fund everything we need. So I'm not sure how that, maybe we can use that to highlight, and that gives them, is not saying that not any one is any more important. It's just that one is a heavier nut to crack for anyone out there. Thanks.
Okay. So other than Mayor Pro Tem Worthington listing his top 3 priorities, I did not hear any other council members per se list priorities. Am I understanding that correct?
No, Mayor, is Councilmember Keel. I agree with that priority list of top 3 for the state. And then I was saying that for the feds, it might be a highlight. We might highlight the Day Island study at the federal level. Are you
proposing a different resolution here?
No. I'm proposing that we pass a resolution that has all of them on it.
Okay.
And they're there. And those are our legislative priorities for 2022. And then as staff talks on our behalf at the different levels, they can highlight different ones based on who they're talking to. So for example, we might know that the state it's a short session and they may only have, a little bit of money, and maybe it's the top 3 that, and I would say the second 2, the abatement and the little building by our park, the 500,000, the 250 and the 500,000 one that we might do at the state, because we just have a feeling that's probably what they can stomach, right? We say we want them all, but these are the 2 that we're going to highlight. And then when it comes to the feds, we might talk about the $1.2 million, project. I mean, I know an agency that, last year got, $33 billion from the feds. So it's not like the feds can't, cough up $1.2 million. It's nothing for them, in my opinion. And so just have the whole list and just let staff highlight different ones as they talk to the different agencies.
Okay. So I'm taking it there's no motion to prioritize the resolution as submitted or as motioned. Okay. Any further discussion before we go to council consideration? Okay. Hearing none, may we please have roll call?
Councilmember Figueroa.
Councilmember Figueroa, aye.
Councilmember Keel.
Councilmember Keel, aye.
Councilmember Lee.
Councilmember Lee, aye.
Councilmember McCluskey.
Councilmember McCluskey, aye.
Councilmember Fleming.
Councilmember Fleming, aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Worthington.
Mayor Pro Tem Worthington, aye.
Mayor Belisi.
Mayor Belisi, aye.
Vote result is 7-0, Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Okay, we are on to our next item on the agenda, the city manager report. May we please have Steve Sugg come on screen.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. As you know, the Chambers Creek Trail is under construction. Chambers Creek Trail Bridge number 1 is under construction, and a significant milestone was achieved last week with the placement of that bridge. And our own Amanda Kleber was down on site with her action cam taking video. and I think she has some recent video to show, and I like for her to show that now to you and to the public. Thank you, Amanda. That was produced in-house. That was, Amanda, we don't ask her to take any great risks, but she forded the stream, the creek, over a skinny log to get a vantage point and get those videos, get that footage shot. So this is a major milestone for the city. For the council who approved earlier, several years ago, the interlocal agreement with Pierce County and Lakewood, our other two partners involved in this effort. We're all sharing equal, the cost equally to install that bridge that you just saw. And tonight, earlier in the previous item, you talked about your 2022 legislative agenda, of which the Chambers Creek Trail Bridge number 2 is a part of. Which includes some needed funds. As the project has expanded, additional boardwalk is necessary to get over sensitive areas and the like, and it's naturally more expensive. So we're going to, it's on the list, and obviously we'll be looking for different ways of getting that bridge number 2 done, but it is a priority, which will open up even more sections of that trail. This is 26 years in the making. Nothing's ever quite done. Big initiative projects like this take a long time. Many stakeholders, many people played a part. David Swindale, who helped get pieces of right-of-way and easements and so forth to help make this a reality. Gary Cooper on the construction end, and he's been a part of that ILA since its beginning and along with the design efforts. So we're not done. Stay tuned. We will be coming back to you, Council, with a date, some dates on when there could be a possible ribbon cutting. We believe it will be this year in 2021. So stay tuned. We'll want to have as many of you present as possible. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to the mayor, but this was a big week last week. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sugg. At this time, we are open for council comments and report outs. Councilmember Figueroa, do you have any comments or report outs?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes. Just going back to Mr. Sugg's presentation. And I've mentioned this at the very end of the study session in our last meeting about naming that bridge. I've just threw out, JBLM 16 cab, but after further conversations with staff, council, they wanted to know if we can give them some direction because they have, this is a collaborative effort with Pierce County. I think Pierce County has most of the lead there, but I'd like to see if there's support in giving direction to the staff to engage in it with Pierce County or the other partners, Lakewood, in naming that bridge with some kind of a military theme. I just threw out 2 names, but maybe instead of letting the conversation flush out a military theme that may honor our military and name that bridge after that, where it may be, the Gold Star Family Bridge, or it could be anything. But so I think that the military is also always somewhat of a ribbon tie among the region, and that everybody can agree to. And so so I really would like to see that happen. I hate to just miss this opportunity to not name this bridge and just call it Bridge 1 or Chambers Bay Creek Bridge again. And what are we going to, so I think it would be nice to be able to leverage goodwill with our military for this bridge. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Keel.
Great, thank you, Mayor. As long as you don't let locks be on that bridge, I'd be fine with it. But that's a different story. I just want to reiterate that Mayor, you and I talked about a letter that was to be written, and I just want to get this out in our meeting to say that I really hope that we do that. And I hadn't heard what the status of that, but I would ask again that we get that done.
A letter for what? I didn't get that.
Yeah, it's a letter that the mayor and I are talking about to be written. We had well, I'll just say it. We had something happen in our city. When the firebombing came at the mosque, we had some legislators come to our city with the governor, and none of us knew that happened. And in my view, that's just not acceptable. I know we had some conversations about that, and it appears to be there's some kind of missed communication, not on our part or our staff's part, but on the part of the people that were trying to pull this together. And it's just unconscionable to me that other electeds will appear up in a local jurisdiction and have all of that and not include the local electeds, and in fact include other local electeds from the next city, and not include the local. So I think we need to communicate how we feel about that.
I will let you know, Councilmember Keel, that I did let the aide for Governor Inslee know in very strong terms that I was not very pleased with her comments and her falling on the sword for it, and that I would expect in the future that city staff as well as council would be made aware of any attempts to visit in our city. So.
Yeah, and just to follow up to that, Mayor, I saw today that there was some interfaith meeting that happened.
That was that's part of my report out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you. I'll stop. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Lee, do you have any report outs or comments at this time?
Councilmember Lee, yes, I have two reports. One is I had the opportunity today to go with the mayor to a ribbon cutting at the Linton Insurance Agency. It's on 27th Street, right just west of the Montessori School. The lady that owns that agency has actually, and her family, she has two children in the University Place School District, and she and her husband live here in UP, so it's truly a UP business. She actually opened up last year, but couldn't do a ribbon cutting because of COVID. So we caught up today. I'd like to give Becky Metcalf from the staff a real pat on the back, because we've had a ribbon cutting now, I think almost every week. And she's getting different businesses. So I'm just really proud that we're reaching out. We're reaching out to these businesses and letting them know that we think that they're special. My second item is want to invite everybody to the Veterans Memorial. We're going to have a small but meaningful ceremony on Veterans Day, which is the 11th of November. It will be at the Cirque Park Veterans Plaza construction site. The site will not be finished. The amenities, the stone pillars and the benches and so forth are on their way on a ship from India. I'm sure they're not to Long Beach yet, but they'll get there. The wall is up and constructed. The rebar and electrical conduit is in place. Because of the weather, they haven't been able to pour the concrete. So we're waiting for that. In any event, regardless of what happens, we'll have a ceremony, as it should be, to celebrate our veterans and the sacrifices that they made. It will be next to our construction site, so people will be able to see that there is progress. And so it's going to be a great day. And I'd like to have everybody attend, and our community is certainly invited. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Lee. Councilmember McCluskey, any report outs at this time or comments?
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Lee, what time is the Veterans ceremony?
At 10:30.
10:30?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. And to Councilmember Figueroa's point as to naming the bridge, I concur. I'm also leaning towards the Gold Star with the little plaque describing what Gold Star means, so it'll be more educational and informative, because people are not quite aware of their ultimate sacrifice and what they do to support those who've had that unfortunate situation occur in their family. And, you know, a bridge and water in that environment is also healing. So I think it'd be an appropriate naming to that bridge. You know, instead of, let's go to Upper Bridge or Lower Bridge, to have something that is more significant. So good idea. Thank you for bringing that forward. To Councilmember Keel's point, I totally concur with that. I was taken aback, and I thought it was a very disrespectful move to not include any city official, especially our mayor, when the governor was coming to town. And then to see a mast that had Tacoma over it. I was really offended. I know University Place took the mosque situation, fully embraced it, was quick on the response, met with the officials, showed our support. We had showed our support in previous years when, situations had happened to them. So I know that they do believe University Place has their full support, and also wants to ensure their continued mosque services in our city as well. However, when the delegation comes from the state level on down, a UP representative should have been there. So it also will show the mosque that everyone is in collaboration and working together, and they aren't on divided fronts, for the good or the betterment. So thank you for your email response. And I did respond to our city manager that I was in concurrence as well. Also, I'd like to give my personal thanks as a city council member to our award for the NACOA to Amanda and Linda. They have done absolutely quality programming for many, many years. And, you know, as you can see with the last YouTube taping, they do take risks to get those beautiful shots. And they also, I'm sure, have to do a lot of editing to make sure it's quality and top notch. And for them to get the first place award, that's a big wow, because I'm sure there's a lot of competition in that field as well. And also, I want to just say my support to the police services, and I am 100% in support of whatever the University Place City can do to help in their recruitment needs to enhance their staffing service. It's essential that we have enough police officers to ensure our public safety at large at all times, and also to see what the city can do to establish some enhancements along with the county so that we can maybe do some lateral transfers for other communities, because, you know, we're just looking too good to refuse. So I like to throw that out there as well. And that's the end of my comments for this evening, so thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Fleming, any comments or report outs at this time?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will try to be brief. I, too, endorse what Councilmember Figueroa has proposed for the bridge. I think it's very apropos and along the lines of what Councilmember McCluskey said about how we honor those who gave the ultimate sacrifice. I like that idea of the plaque, because a lot of people don't understand that. So I think that would be awesome. I also applaud the comments from Councilmember Keel as well as McCluskey with regards to what transpired. It does show disrespect at the highest level of government to come into a city, and a lack of understanding of protocols when you enter into another jurisdiction, at least notifying them that you're coming. So I think the letter is absolutely apropos for going forward. I know the council has followed with great interest what they're doing with Councilmember Grassi. I just wanted to inform the council that that decision's finally been made, that his celebration of life will be on November 13th at 1 o'clock at our church there on 67th. So there you go.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Worthington.
Thank you, Mayor Belisi. Let's see, a couple of items. So indeed, congratulations to Amanda and Linda and David for their work on our behalf, and the award from NATOA and a first place is, well, can't be beat. Good job all the way around. And there were other awards as well, but the first place is a particular distinction. Nonetheless, we've got a quality team, and it shows the production values that they have and how they represent our communities. So it is, we're proud to be part of that and the work that's done there. Just to follow suit with the idea of naming the bridge, certainly in favor of military theme if we have that opportunity, and Gold Star and helping educate folks about what that means and the ultimate sacrifice that's involved there. Seems like an excellent idea. And I think that's probably going to do my comments for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. At this time, it's my honor to give you a report out. I've got to say, the last 2 weeks, there have been 2 ribbon cuttings held in this community. You heard about one that was held today at Linton Insurance on 27th Street. The other was Blue Mountain Behavioral Health that's at Regents and 27th. What makes these 2 businesses unique is that they are women-owned businesses. And these are women that are living in our community, raising their children in our community, and deserve support from our community. They are 2 diverse businesses, one being a behavioral health item or business, and the other being insurance. the behavioral health, this woman is taking a chance. She is starting a second career. She was working in a comfortable situation out at the base, working with veterans, and now decided to go into business for herself. So, and this is a later in life change of priorities for her, and she has a wonderful, welcoming office setup, and is very enthused about meeting the community and serving the behavioral needs of the community. So as you are looking for services in those areas, please start looking at our unique and diverse family-owned businesses, such as Blue Mountain Behavioral Health and the Linton Insurance. And let's support these local businesses to ensure that they grow and prosper. It just helps make us a more vibrant business community in general. And you heard earlier from Councilmember Keel that yesterday there was an interfaith meeting held at TCC. I was honored this meeting was a closed by invitation only meeting. Approximately 100 area individuals were invited to this meeting. They were of all the faith-based organizations, not only in Pierce County and the Tacoma area, but some even from Seattle and North King County came to show support for the rash of vandalisms and arsons that have occurred at places of business, places of worship over the last 6 to 8 months. And it was just astounding as they listed all the arson and vandalism attacks that have been made, not only against the buildings of worship, but also against individuals of worship. And so I had the honor of sitting next to Senator Strickland. Representative Kilmer was also in attendance, as well as Mayor Woodards from the city of Tacoma. And we were there just to support the local interfaith community and let them know that we do not tolerate this kind of violence, that everybody as a basis of what our country was founded on was a freedom of religion and a right to worship in your particular faith comfortably and without fear. So hopefully the message gets out there so we as community leaders as well as citizens can stand up to this outrage that has been occurring and let these people know that want to do bad things to places of worship will stop, think, and those of us that see this action occurring will also ensure that we interact sooner rather than later. This interfaith meeting actually happened over a 72-hour period of time, and if it had not been for friendship that I have with an individual at the local Tacoma mosque, I probably would not have been alerted to it, even though the imam from the Islamic Center had received my contact information. So I do want to acknowledge and thank this individual at the mosque for reaching out to me and inviting me to this meeting, because I do feel it is important as not only an elected leader, but also a citizen of the community to stand up against such outrageous behavior. We'll see if there's future meetings. I did talk to Mayor Woodards on the side and let her know that I was also equally offended and upset that she came to our community and did not reach out to any of us or staff to let us know that this was being scheduled. So I let him know.
Thank you.
Yes. Also, I am going to ask for a consensus. December 20th is our final meeting on the agenda for City Council, and I just wanted to see if there was a consensus to cancel said meeting on the 20th. Is there anybody that is just wanting to sit in a council meeting on December 20th? If so, raise your hand and we will all look at you. Okay, not seeing any hands raised. I think we have a consensus. We will be canceling our last meeting of December 20th, 2021. And I thank you for your consensus here. With that, the manager's report is over, but we have 2 items left for study session, and we only have 5 minutes, so we do need to extend. I would like a motion to extend till 9 o'clock.
Mayor Belisi, this is Mayor Pro Tem Worthington, and I move we extend our meeting until 9 o'clock this evening.
Okay, I have a first, do I have a second?
Councilmember Keel, a second.
Okay, I have a first and a second. Are there any objections? Okay, not seeing any. We are extended till 9. With that, our next item is the write-off study session. I would like to have our Finance Director, Leslie Blaisdell, come on screen and give us a study report, please.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Leslie Blaisdell, Finance Director. Attached for study session tonight is a draft resolution authorizing the write-off of accounts receivable invoices exceeding $1,000. Pursuant to University Place Municipal Code, the city shall make reasonable attempts to collect all money owing in compliance with city policies and procedures, and if such attempts fail and at least 120 days have passed since the original due date, the receivable will be sent to a collection agency. No less than 24 months after the original due date, if the receivable remains uncollected, the city may write off the debt. Any debts that exceed $1,000 will be brought to the City Council for approval to write off. Attached in the packet is the list of 40 invoices that exceed $1,000 that we are seeking approval to write off. Attempts to collect the debts were made by finance staff, and then they were referred to a collection agency. The reason we're doing this, amounts booked on accounts receivable are tracked in our accounting records and are reported as an asset because they're monies that we expect to receive. But after 24 months of collection efforts, the likelihood of receiving these monies is greatly reduced. The collection agency will continue to work those accounts that have not exceeded the statute of limitations, or they've determined the debtor has no attachable assets. So they'll continue working them after they've been written off our books, and any monies received after they have been written off will be posted as a miscellaneous revenue to the general fund. This will come back to council on December 6th for council consideration and approval. And this concludes my report, and I'm open to any questions.
Okay. I see Councilmember Lee has raised his hand.
Councilmember Lee, thank you, Leslie, for your report. It's concise and act just like you always do. I do have a couple of questions. One is the collection agency. Is that a new agency?
No, we've been using the same agency for as long as I've been here. Jennifer Robinson, one of our financial analysts, just completed a task that I assigned to her. She pulled the state contract. Listed on the state contract for collection services are 3 collection agencies, 2 within the state of Washington and 1 in Georgia. So she contacted the 2 located in the state of Washington, as well as a 3rd agency that I believe it was Councilmember Fleming gave us the name of. She obtained information on other cities they work with, their collection and recovery rate, their process for submitting documents and us being able to review them online, which makes things much easier, as well as their charges. And at this point, she is working with PMT out of Bellevue to get the documentation submitted so we can begin submitting our collections to this new agency. She contacted the cities. They currently work with City of Seattle, Bellevue, and Redmond, and got good feedback on that. So we are planning to switch to a new collection agency in hopes of seeing a better recovery rate.
I was just curious, what is the recovery rate for our current collection agency?
It is not very high, but somewhat in their defense, much of what goes to the collection agency is public works restitution. Usually caused by uninsured motorists, and typically the reason they don't have insurance is because they can't afford it, and so they also can't afford to pay the damage costs, and typically don't have any attachable assets, which makes it difficult for the collection agency to do anything.
Okay, one last question. Why did the data stop on report at September 2017?
Because of the 24 months, so after the 24 months. So this is a cleanup, gets us through 2018, and then anything that happened in 19 will be then brought to you next year, 19 and 20. It's a 24 month.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Worthington, followed by Council Member Fleming.
Thank you, Mayor Felici. Leslie, thank you. Certainly, we need to basically we need to clear our books of assets that have no real value. And even though we are going back 16 years, or I guess it's 17 years to, in some cases, to eliminate some of these supposed assets. It's just what we need to do to be accurate and what we can expect. So I don't have any questions about the process. It's what we probably need to do. I do have, there are 3 of these items listed that I have some questions about. I'm not sure if this is the time to raise that or if another time would be better suited for that. So, and I frankly have asking you that.
I can do my best to answer your questions.
Okay, so near the bottom of the list, there's, I'll give you the 3 and you can respond later, or if you have the information now, great. But one is AR002912, rent gross sales compactor, 11,863. Another one is AR002, excuse me, wrong one. AR002142, restitution wire theft. And AR002829, plan review related to a building permit that might have been issued in 2013. 16,921. So I'd like to hear a little more detail about those items at some time.
The 002912 rent gross sales compactor was for a tenant of one of the suites in the Civic Building that went out of business, and they did not pay the final gross sales that was owed, nor the final compactor bill that was owed, and so we worked it for a while, and then it was turned over to collections.
Did they file for bankruptcy?
I believe they did, yes.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Let's see, the restitution wire theft. Let me get to my other list. I don't have a lot of details on that one. It is one where a suspect was identified, but there was we tried to collect it. We went to collections, and there was no restitution.
The heart of my question there is essentially, have we done what we need to do to file or press charges if they ever locate who's responsible for this? So
yes, typically when there's one where there's a police action involved, we work through the city attorney and try and get restitution ordered by the courts, but that isn't always a guarantee of getting payment either.
Right.
And the final one, the plan review fees, there was a building permit that was applied for. There were some outside services needed. Those outside services were billed to the company. They did not proceed with the plan, and so the fees were never paid. Again, turned over to collections, and they were unable to, at this point, they've been unable to collect. That one is newer, so they are still working it.
Okay, but ultimately we didn't issue a permit with an outstanding bill.
Correct.
So, okay, thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Fleming.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My questions are very similar to Mayor Pro Tem Worthington's. Leslie, I'm going to kind of go in reverse order though, but on the building fee, you said that one's still being worked, so why would that be on the list for the council to write off?
It's being written off the books. It's from 2016, so it falls within that 24 months of the municipal code. But like I said, if there's still haven't exceeded a statute of limitations, the collection agency still works that account and we would still receive any money that they collected. This just gets it off our books because it's been 5 years. We're less likely to see that money. And again, it follows the procedure in the municipal code that after 24 months, if it remains uncollected, we'll write off the debt to take it off of our financials and books.
So I heard two different things there. I just want to make sure I understand. Even though it's taken off the books, they'll continue to work it?
Correct. It's just when we report this on our financial reports, we report the amount of monies that are due to us that have been billed, and it gets reported as an asset. And at this stage of the game, we're very likely not to receive any money on that, but if we do, they'll still remit it to us, and it just gets posted as a miscellaneous revenue and goes into the general fund.
Okay, I mean, I like the idea that we continue to pursue it. I mean, it's easy to write it off, but I look at everything on here as belonging to the people, and it's their money, not ours. I'm curious on the admissions tax. How did that happen, and how are we writing that off?
That is a business that remitted admissions tax. They also went out of business. I believe it was the final month admission tax that they never submitted. The amount that we billed was based on historical numbers to try and collect that amount. Collections continued to work it for a while, but again, it was they went out of business, and they have not been able to collect those funds at this point.
Doesn't that constitute theft when you don't pay those taxes?
I would have to leave that to the city attorney, but possibly.
So I hope that we'll continue to pursue that one. And then lastly, back to Mayor Pro Tem Worthington's question about restitutions. You know, some of the nickel and I shouldn't use nickel and dime stuff. Everything has meaning. But I know that there's a threshold there where the cost of pursuing in court outweighs the cost of collection and recovery. But there's a couple on here, or at least one I see that's large. Why would we not pursue that for garnishment?
The collection agency does look at that and attempt to, typically they don't have any attachable assets or a way to garnish, but they do look at that as use that as one of their methods. Okay.
You know, I think the subtle message in my own head on this is that, to your earlier point, we had a collection agency that really wasn't highly motivated to do anything. So I hope your new one, in fact, I know your new one will, because their ROI is very, very good. So thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on this portion of the study session? Okay, this will appear for our action at our next meeting. The fee schedule review is our next study session item, and Director Blaisdell is leading that study session.
You're stuck with me again. The city has a variety of fee schedules that are approved by council, and pursuant to our budget guidelines, all fees for services should be reviewed by the city manager at least every biennium and adjusted by council when necessary to ensure that fees are equitable and cover the percentage of service costs deemed appropriate by the city. Typically, this is done as part of our biennial budget process. However, the city manager requested staff to review the fees this year as well. There are a few that we are recommending changes to, and this was an interesting project because through the years, every time a new fee schedule was approved, it was done on a separate resolution. So when this comes back to council for approval, we are working to bring all of the fees into one resolution. Everything will be in one place, and so you'll be approving the changes and the fees that aren't changing, and we'll be less likely to have some that slip through the cracks. For instance, as we go through this, there was one that was approved at one point just specifically for Sunset Terrace. It got buried, and so I've spent weeks going through resolutions trying to identify all of the different fees to make sure nothing slipped through the cracks. Attached to the packet are the different fee schedules with changes, and they're noted, but I'll go through some of them. Under administrative fees, we're adding some fees related to the cost of providing copies, mostly related to computer generated. When these fees were initially adopted, things weren't being done by computer. So we've changed the language to include more up-to-date language. We also are removing some language. There were some that referred to providing data on a 3.5-inch micro disc, which, as we all know, hasn't been used in many years. So we went right down into the language and made sure that we caught any of those types of errors. And then we are removing the fee for the option of obtaining a DVD of UPTV recordings, because that can all be done electronically now. Animal control fees, staff is recommending that we consider a small increase to accommodate for the 3% cost to the city in credit card processing fees. As you know, we've gone to an online payment for that. Additionally, staff is recommending that the rate increase be rounded to the nearest flat dollar amount. The uneven licensing amounts create some confusion for pet owners. We have some that are $13.80 and will often get numbers transposed. And so they felt that just doing the 3% increase and rounding to a flat number will make it easier for everyone involved. We are eliminating fees for items that are now handled by Pierce County as part of our agreement. When we entered into the agreement with Pierce County for animal control services, the city retained the ability to set the licensing fees, but we adopted provisions of the code that regulated certain practices that Pierce County now handles. Facility rental fees, there were several items there. We're increasing field rental fees and field prep fees based on current costs to do that. We're eliminating, there was a separate line for a game with prep fees. We're eliminating that. So when you book the field, you will have the field fee and a prep fee. It was just confusing. We're changing the language and for shelter rentals, because as you know, those changed to a first come, first served. So we're updating that language. We are including Sunset Terrace rentals in the main one, and then we'll be eliminating the one that got buried that was off on its own. And we're eliminating community center and town hall rental fees, as we don't do that anymore. There was still an approved fee schedule for recreation fees, so we're eliminating that one. And telecom fees, there was a fee for a $50 registration that I don't think when I did the research had ever really been collected. And now that we have business licenses, we're eliminating that fee. And then again, we're eliminating there was a separate town hall rental fee separate from the other one. So we're eliminating that. So just doing some housekeeping and cleanup, and we hope to bring this back to you as one resolution so that things don't get lost and buried and can be looked at as one packet in the future rather than every little piece. So that concludes my report.
Okay. Any comments or questions from council? What? No comments, no questions. Okay, I guess that was a very thorough presentation there, Leslie, and everybody thoroughly understood it, so we should have no issue when it comes before us for approval. Councilmember Keel, you raised your hand.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just responding to your, when it comes back, we'll have no problems or issues. I'm just saying, I bet on that.
Yeah. All right. Okay, well, that was our final item on the agenda. So unless there are any further comments or questions, I am going to say thank you for getting us out in record time. We are 20 minutes ahead of our extended evening meeting tonight, and I'm going to call this meeting adjourned. Good night.